Things are certainly starting to heat up in the foldables game, especially with the likes of Oppo, Honor, and Xiaomi starting to release their devices to a more global audience. They are, however, all very expensive and still a little inexperienced on the software front. This is not an issue that Samsung has. It's already 4 generations into the Galaxy Fold, with the Fold 5 coming later this year. The Fold 5 should bring some nice improvements, but in my opinion, I think the foldable to be buying this year is the Galaxy Fold 4. And especially for those of you looking to buy a foldable for the first time. This review comes after nearly 2 months of using the Galaxy Fold 4, and I would appreciate a like and a sub to the channel if you find any of this useful at all. I reviewed the Galaxy Fold 3 just a few months back, and the Fold 4 is very similar in most regards. I actually thought that the Fold 4 was quite iterative, or too iterative, when it was first announced last year. And if you check out my review of the Fold 3, you'll see that there were certain areas of the device that meant that I could not run it as my daily driver phone. I don't want to regurgitate what I said in that review, so it's linked above if you want to check that out first in one of the corners somewhere. I'm going to discuss whether I was able to make this Galaxy Fold 4 into the daily driver that the Fold 3 could not be. Screen real estate is what these foldables are all about. You've got the smaller outer screen, and then you open it up to have that tablet-like experience. First change that Samsung made with the Fold 4 was to make that outer screen, which was super narrow on the Fold 3, a little bit wider, which actually makes it really usable. Now, they've also made it a little less tall, so the dimensions are actually a little bit nicer overall. Then obviously when you open it up, you also have different dimensions, so it's not quite as tall. You've got a little bit more width. It's actually a little bit more suitable for watching YouTube videos and such. But a lot of people with Fold 3 would just say, well, you could quite easily watch a YouTube video on the Fold 3, just turn it on its side, and you probably get an even better aspect ratio that way. But I don't like doing that. I just want to open it and watch, generally. And that way, I don't also have the crease going through the entire video. Doesn't bother some people, clearly. But yeah, I'd prefer to just have the crease going down the middle. I think it's a little bit less noticeable that way. It really did make the phone more practical for multitasking though. So I often would run multiple apps. So I'd have maybe Pokemon Go on one side, and then on the other side I'd have a YouTube video playing at the top left with the Twitter feed as well underneath that. And because they've made that outer screen a little bit wider, when you open it up, each half is the same dimensions as the outer screen. So you've got a little bit more area to work with when you're multitasking. You've got apps side by side. I found it very useful. It worked really well. And that, even though it's such a small change from the Fold 3, it really does make the Fold 4 way more usable. One of the biggest changes for the Fold 4 was the SoC. The Fold 3 had the Snapdragon 888. This was an SoC fabricated by Samsung, and as well as the 8 Gen 1, also had issues with thermal throttling and poor efficiency. However, the Fold 4 has the 8 Plus Gen 1, which is the TSMC fabricated version of the 8 Gen 1. So very little's changed in terms of the design. It's just that it's now fabricated on a different process with a different company, and lo and behold, it's a much better SoC. This brought basically better efficiency and increased performance. A major complaint I had with the Fold 3 would be how hot it would get. And this would be particularly apparent when you were out using 5G and going through areas with poor coverage. And it would also cause very heavy throttling in games, and battery life would take a massive hit. No such complaints with the Fold 4. The 8 Plus Gen 1 is an absolute peach of an SoC. You've got better performance, less network issues, less battery drain. It's just such a great chip to use, and it really does make the Fold 4 a night and day difference experience compared to the Fold 3. Now, lastly, in what was a deal breaker for me, and still is to a degree, the cameras. I made a few fans of the Fold 3 a little bit angry by me saying that the cameras on the Fold 3 were basically A-series grade. which I still believe they are. You will not change my mind. Now, the Fold 4 rectifies this in pretty stellar fashion. It's much more akin to what you'd find in the S22 range. You got a 50 megapixel main sensor, as well as much better color reproduction and a 3x telephoto lens. And I really like the output. Video was also excellent and made even better by using the phone in tripod mode. This was so useful whilst letting the boys have their puppuccinos at Starbucks. All in 4K 60 FPS, absolutely lovely. Now, I said the camera was still a deal breaker to a degree, and it's the usual Achilles heel of Samsung cameras. It's shutter lag. It's still there after all these years. I mean, I take lots of photos of our dogs, and the Fold 4 was still frustrating. In fact, I would often switch to the Pixel 6 Pro because I knew that it would nail the shot and I wouldn't get that shutter lag. And the Fold 4 would often just produce a blurry mess. And this issue, coupled with the average to middling battery life, despite having that much more efficient SoC, and even running it in the light performance profile, which is something that is worth checking out if you're on a Samsung phone. You'll sometimes have a light performance profile if you're running a flagship SoC. And this just reduces the clock speed a little bit. Should just give you a bit better battery life. But I didn't really notice much in the way of a difference there. It was still pretty average overall. And this just means that there's just still a couple of areas that the Fold 4 just isn't quite up to scratch. For some people, the cameras really won't be an issue. If you've used a flagship Samsung camera, overall, I think you'll be really happy because it feels like a flagship camera experience now, for the most part, unless you are taking pictures of anything that is moving. The main thing for me, though, I would say was probably the battery life. That was the thing that stuck with me, especially so with me spending most of my time on Wi-Fi anyway. It was still not good enough. If you're traveling a lot, or if you're out and about most of the day, you might find it worse than I did. And to be honest, it wouldn't be so bad if the charging was a bit faster. Overall, though, I have to say the Fold 4 was genuinely a great experience. And it's proof to me that a foldable could be my daily driver. If a company makes a foldable that can do everything the Fold 4 does, as well as give me a good camera experience and good battery life, that would be my daily driver. So let's see what the Fold 5 brings. But I think for most of you out there, I think you would really like the Fold 4. It's a good starting point. There's actually places selling the Fold 4 now for under £800, which is insane. So definitely check that out. See how you get on. If you like it, obviously you could stick with it, or you could look at the Fold 5 a little bit later down the line. Let me know what you think down in the comments. Are you a Fold user? What do you think to the Fold 4? Are you happy with it? Let me know down below. Stay grounded. I'll see you on the next one.